everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, the weekly podcast that helps you grow your business, improve your life, and enjoy yourself along the way. I'm your host, Alan Langer, and every week we try to bring you the best thought leaders, the best business leaders, and the best minds out there to help you succeed in business and in life. So sit back, relax, grab your pad, your pen, and your favorite beverage, and enjoy the next episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. We've got a special edition tonight because we are at number 30, and I've got a pretty special guest for podcast number 30. Eneida Canev is joining us tonight. We'll get to Eneida in a second because I'm very excited. I've been wanting to have her on my podcast for a while now, and we finally got hooked up, so we're going to have a lot of great conversation tonight. But one thing we always start with, just as a reminder, the website is marketingandsalespodcast.com, and the Ask Alan segment, you can get to going to that website, go to the contact section, and send me a question. If I read your question on the air, you will get a free signed autographed copy of my book. And we've got a really good question from Laura in Amarillo, Texas tonight. So send that question in, go to marketingandsalespodcast.com. You can check out all the podcasts that have been done. You can check out the YouTube videos. We're on 20 different platforms, so it's a really cool site. And I'm excited everyone's joining me, and I'm very excited that we have podcast number 30. And Eneida Canev, welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. How are you tonight?
Hey, Alan, I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
This is cool. I've always followed your stuff on LinkedIn, especially when I was a LinkedIn newbie way back before COVID started. So you've always kind of been a little bit of a sales inspiration for me because of the stuff that you do on LinkedIn and everything you post. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, your background briefly, but I'd rather have the guests talk about that. So just so the audience knows, I met Eneida on LinkedIn. I watched her stuff. She posts a lot of great content revolving around sales. And she is on Instagram at her sales resource. But what she does is right now you're a VP of sales for a company that has 10,000 sales agents. Is that correct?
That was my last position. I was a VP of sales for annuities for an insurance company. I had 10,000 agents. I actually am just now starting with a company as a sales enablement specialist. So we're creating their whole sales training program. So I'm excited about my new.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your superpower is sales training. That's yes. That's where you live. And that's really cool because that's what I do. And sales training is so needed, especially today. It's like this constant, you and I see stuff every day. It's like, oh my God, why are you doing that? Or please stop sending these unsolicited DMs to my LinkedIn inbox and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
And it's funny that you say that we need sales training. I think you and I know that because of our sales careers. I've been in sales almost 2 decades. I don't even want to admit that, but almost 20 years in sales. And I started out in insurance sales. I was an insurance salesperson straight out of college. Found out that you can make a lot more money selling stuff than you can at some kind of salaried job. And so I thought I'm going to be a millionaire in 3 days. That was kind of my start. And then, you get hit with reality. But some of us are tenacious and we stick it out. And that's what I did. And I just know that in the beginning years, that, quitting stage, that first to fifth year in sales, where if I had somebody who could coach me, mentor me, and just help me see the roadblocks I couldn't see myself, what a difference that could have made, long-term in my career. And so that's where I am today. I see that happening so many times, and I just want to be able to be an influence in that area.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I think back to, this is my 26th year, so I've got you beat by a few years. But I think back, and I didn't have any the only formal sales training I had was the ridiculous corporate sales training that they force the reps to go through, that teaches you the sales pitch and teaches you objection handling and teaches you basically to be a salesperson that everybody doesn't want to talk to. That's what they, and that's all you have. And
have any sales experience.
What's that?
Because probably the person teaching it didn't really have sales experience. That's probably why.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my book, I talk about, like, the corporate structures I've been to and I've gone through, it's like they train their teams to become 30% closers. Like they're okay. Like if you can close 30%, you'll have a job here. And I was like, oh my God, that means 70% of the people you talk to say no. How is that a successful rate? Right?
Perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
time.
yeah, it's crazy. So I love on your LinkedIn profile, you write something that's really cool that really got me interested. And if I was looking for sales training, this would actually kind of light me up, because you wrote, in my experience, I've seen the following hold people back from sales success. And you list a number of things: poor self-concept, limiting beliefs, mediocre EQ, inconsistent sales processes, and it goes on and on. Talk a little bit about what you see that holds salespeople back.
And I thank you for pointing that out, because when I wrote that, I purposely actually started with mindset things, because I think what we want to come into sales with is, give me the script, tell me what to say, who do I call? We want the tactical stuff, yet we can have all that perfectly laid out, but we don't have self-belief. We don't really believe in the product. We don't align our values to the company's values. All those mindset things will actually hold you back from performing the tactical things. And so that's why I started with those areas. And I think poor self-concept, unfortunately, something most people struggle. But if you're in sales, that's going to really hurt you, because you're not going to be able to present yourself the way you need to, and make the money you can make if you don't see yourself capable or being at that level.
Right. And do you agree with, so I've always, this is how I train. I'm like, you have to be yourself. You can't follow a process that is not you. Like every company has to have a process, but then you have to take the process and you have to learn how to live within it and become you and a real person in front of the prospect. And so many companies don't want you to do that. Talk about a little bit about that.
You have to be yourself. So when I train, I'm a quirky person. I joke around a lot. I'm from Jersey originally, so I'm a little sarcastic.
Me too.
You're from Jersey? That's why I like
Jersey. A couple of Jersey kids right here.
Like that. There you go. So you know what I'm talking about. We have that quib back and forth. And there's some people who are introverted, right? There's some people who are sweet and kind, and they're just that's not their personality. So maybe where I insert jokes or I try to make people laugh, that isn't something you should do, because it's not your nature. You'll actually sound silly trying to sound like me. So I believe there's a skeleton, right? Like you said, the process, that's where that's our foundation, but you have to put yourself in there. And I've seen introverts succeed in sales, and I've seen people with the gift of gab actually fail in sales. So I don't think it matters. I think the process does matter, but bring yourself to the process 100%.
And there's this misconception that extroverted people, outgoing people are always going to be successful salespeople. It's completely, it's some people will, but it's false. I mean, it has to do with, I think I read a study the other day that the number one trait of a successful salesperson is empathy. And right. It's crazy. You don't have to be like the rah-rah guy or the buddy that's slapping someone on the back to be a good salesperson. No.
And I think those people actually don't succeed long-term because they don't think they have to improve skill set. They're just so reliant on their extrovertedness and their personality. They think I can talk my way through anything. And that's why they actually tend to fail, because I don't care how wonderful you are with people, there's still a closing process. There's still a question asking process, right? And if you don't get that down, you're going to fail. And so extroverted people, I think, have more of a danger of failing in sales, believe it or not, because they don't tend to see themselves needing that.
That's a great point. It really is. And you know what? This is my show, and it's show 30, and I completely forgot to virtually cheers you because I'm having a Cabernet tonight. And what do you have tonight?
Sauvignon Blanc. So
a Sauvignon Blanc. So here's a cheer. You are in Dallas, Texas. So way to go, Dallas. Our question is coming up from Amarillo, so that's cool later on. But I normally start with, "Hey, what are you drinking?" I was so excited to talk to you, I totally forgot about it. So
we've been drinking, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's been a long day. Let me tell you.
I'm with you.
So, tell me so now you're doing sales enablement.
Yes.
Tell us, that is sort of a new thing on the horizon. a new thing in sales. And I've talked to people who don't really understand what that is. So why don't you explain to us what sales enablement actually means?
It's hilarious because when I was considering the whole role and the concept, I didn't know what it meant. I'm like, okay, what exactly is sales enablement? And I think we overthink things. It's enabling sales to happen in an organization. That's literally all it is. So, right? I mean, we overthink everything. I just need more sales to happen. Like you talked about that 30% ratio, like my job is to kind of come in there and see where we can increase skill sets to increase that ratio, right? Do whatever we can to not just have cookie cutter approaches, be able to have people understand the mindsets and the emotional intelligence they need to have, because sometimes, especially if you have a technical product, you tend to forget about the people part of the business, right? So a sales enablement,
absolutely,
who can just come in there and help reshape the way they're seeing sales so they can enable more sales for themselves.
So you're helping the salespeople not how to sell, but how to understand the concept of selling. I'm not understanding 100%.
So I would say yes to both of those. Yes.
Okay.
Everything ground zero. Like we need a sales process, but then I want to make sure you as the person have an emotional connection to the process, that you're not just going to be a robot trying to go out there.
Oh, I see.
That you connect to how the process is actually going to make you better. Right.
Wow.
And so the fun part, because we don't have a process yet. So this is brand new and we're going to get to create it from scratch, and all with the purpose of helping each rep make more money. Right. And help them
and make and have the company make more money as well.
Absolutely.
And does the sales enablement actually include the sales process in front of a prospect?
Yes, absolutely. So from how to actually make a phone call to how to go all the way through the closing, handling objections, all the fun stuff that we get to deal with in the whole process.
Wow. Well, that's enablement. That's for sure.
Right. I know. I was like, what? That's all it is.
Yeah. So awesome. it's like this kind of funky like term that people are like, oh, I don't know what that is anymore. I'm afraid to think about that when it's another sales term.
Right. Oh my goodness. Like something else I have to learn. No, it's actually very, very simple.
So in your experience, what are you seeing, especially this year is such a different year, difficult year. Everything has obviously gone virtual. What have you seen, or what have reps been telling you that they're struggling with the most? Do you see anything specifically consistent with that?
It's funny because even though this year came upon us, nobody planned it or expected it. This isn't new to our career, if you think about it. So I'm going to date myself a little bit, but do you remember back in the day when PDAs came out, right? The Palm Pilots and
the little Blackberries,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Right. So that's how I'm dating myself. So I obviously used to do everything on paper. The Palm Pilots came out, and then and then phones started coming out with keyboards on them, those phones. And we used to start being able to start taking applications on a phone. And I fought it, Alan. I was like, nobody's going to give me their social security to put into my cell phone. Like, who will ever do that, right? And it obviously just became the way of the world. That's no problem right now to pull out your cell phone to take an app, and nobody cares. And so, yes, this kind of came upon us, but I'm looking at it as just another shift that happens in our world in sales, right? So it used to be maybe people thought you could only sell face to face, and now we're realizing that it's absolutely possible to do it over a computer. And so it's just opening up our eyes, maybe forcibly, to the fact that we have a lot more at our fingertips than we thought we did. So it's a positive thing if you're in sales to have had this happen to you, because I think it opened your horizons to where you wouldn't have let it before.
That is such a great point, because I think back to March 13th when Rhode Island went into quarantine. And I literally probably was on 4 Zoom calls my whole life prior to that, which I would think is not uncommon for a lot of people. So we had to learn that. Everybody had to learn that very quickly. And now it's such a second nature. It's like talking it's almost like I'd rather do a Zoom call than a phone call these days. I would rather do that.
Absolutely.
But think about how you had to adapt. And you're right. I think salespeople, you have to be a good adapter to be a good salesperson, because all this stuff is always coming at you. Personalities change. The power of sales is really in the customer's lap. It's not in the seller's lap anymore, because all the information is available prior to you even meeting with someone. So I think that's a great point. If you can't adapt, you're gonna die.
Absolutely. And it's not going to be the last time There's going to be something that hits the next year or 10 years. I don't know, right? That'll change the way we do it. So it's just a matter of us understanding the beast and running with it.
I remember when I was working at Anderson Windows, we used to do everything on an Excel spreadsheet and a calculator. Basically, we would price a whole job. And then they came out with an iPad program to price the job. And it was completely paperless. And I remember 4 reps quit after it came out. They didn't want to learn it. They were using to adapt. They were like, you know what? I am not learning this.
Wow.
I'm going to go find a company that doesn't have this type of technology.
What's funny is, that they've had to learn something like that already since then. They could have quit and got by now. It's how we do it.
It's like the admin or the secretary that's been there for 30 years and they finally go from the electric typewriter to the computer and they were kicking and screaming. So.
Alan, I was in somebody's office this week and I saw a Rolodex. I'm like, we need to upgrade. But yeah, people are scared of change.
For those of you who don't know, a Rolodex was like a little round thing that kept your business cards and you kept it on your desk. It was not in your computer. You kind of flipped through it. Paper business card holder is what it was.
I have no idea. Some of these listeners have no idea what I just said. That's awesome.
So how long have you been in your new role and are there challenges you're seeing from the enablement standpoint, or is it really cool that you get to build this from the ground up?
Yeah, it's really cool. When you're in sales for a long time and you have a lot of that freedom and flexibility and you get to, call your own shots when it comes to your schedule or you're making your decisions, it's nice to have that baby from scratch that you get to raise. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I'm very, very blessed, very grateful to have matched with an opportunity like that, because I think, some salespeople struggle because they are micromanaged, unfortunately, by managers. And I bet you if we let them kind of fly a little bit more, they'd actually get more done. But so many micromanaging, managers out there are trying to make sure that they're getting the most out of every day. And so what I'm finding here is the complete opposite. I have wings. I'm able to go and, make stuff happen. And I have an amazing, support team. The C-level team is awesome that they're supporting us and building something big. So fired up.
And you're gonna create reps that are psyched to work for you and be in that environment where they can grow. Because, when you're not in that environment, we've all worked for bosses who micromanage or, how many calls did you make today? Did you make your 75 calls? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, tell us, this is a good segue because I met you on LinkedIn where you were doing a lot of personal branding.
Yeah.
Like you were not, your company was there, but it was your personal brand.
Absolutely.
And I think that's become really important in 2020 to kind of differentiate yourself as a salesperson, because yes, you can work for a company. Yes, you can be a rep for ABC Corporation, but you can also build a personal brand on a site like LinkedIn that will help you sell and not only get you exposure, but the company exposure. Talk a little bit about how important you see that, because I run into pushback sometimes from C-level people saying, "No, I don't want my people on LinkedIn. They need to be making their 100 calls a day."
Unfortunately, if you have a C-level person saying that your rep is probably building his LinkedIn profile behind your back. I've met a lot of those. Mm-hmm. So you'd be so much better off saying, run with it, be your own guy, let the salesperson shine. People who are in sales and do well in sales, we tend to love praise and recognition and the limelight. That's why we do what we do, right? We're not always motivated by money. We're motivated by being the guy. And I think squashing that actually makes a very poor, a management decision, because that salesperson doesn't feel like they can be themselves. And that's what we were talking about earlier. I think if you have a manager or you have a company that's okay with you putting yourself out there, it's your obligation to put yourself out there, because you're going to get better and better by doing that. Your confidence is going to grow. People are going to come look at you as an expert. And imagine you have a client who says, people do this nowadays. Everybody checks LinkedIn, right? So you have a client who says, I'm going to check the LinkedIn profile. All of a sudden they see you have all these followers, you have all these featured posts. It's only going to serve you as a salesperson. Have that on there. So if you're a manager and you're not letting your people do it, I promise you they're doing it anyway. Kind of like when mom gave early curfew, we snuck out the window. It's like, it's still going to happen. right? So just let it, because then people are going to go back and go, man, this company hires professionals. That's what's going to happen. It's only going to be better for the company.
Yeah, and when you're saying they're doing it anyway, they're probably doing it to find another job. Is what they're doing.
I mean, ultimately, yeah, that's what their goal is, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's. I would much rather if I had a sales team working for me, I'd rather them spend an hour on LinkedIn a day than making 50 phone calls. It just the amount of time, the return on investment is so much greater by connecting with your clients on LinkedIn than just making 25 cold calls and hoping you get one out of them.
Yeah. I agree. There's a purpose to it. I think that's part of the change in where we are today. 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, yes, the phone was pretty much our only option. Today we have the phone. I'm a big believer in the phone. I will never say the phone is obsolete, but we also get to have a presence on social media. So I'm like, why would we not take advantage of it? So.
Of course, yeah. If you're not taking advantage of it, you're going to be left behind. There's a lot of things today where you have to keep up because everyone is the smart ones are moving ahead. They're building a brand. They have a second social media platform that they're also doing, and you have to do it as a salesperson. You absolutely have to do it. So.
Yes. I hope if there's anybody who hears that and it's one manager that says, you know what, I'm going to let Bob have his LinkedIn page, then that would be worth it, because it would change Bob's life. It would change your life as a company, change that culture.
I mean, I was contacted by a CEO of a manufacturing company, and I said, the first thing you need to do is you need to put their sales manager, their VP of all of them. I said, they weren't even on LinkedIn. I said, the first thing you need to do is get everybody on LinkedIn. Your salespeople aren't on LinkedIn. And she's like, no. It's like, all right, we got a lot of work to do here. We got a lot of work.
I agree. It's a free platform. And like you said, an hour a day can go a long way.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. So tell me, I love when I talk to sales trainers and people like you. Tell me, I like to see if you have that one really funny sales story, that one thing that pops in your head. Like, I know we all have 100 of them, but give me one that's a good one that you want to share.
I mean, sure. I have, like you said, I have a lot of them. I'll tell you one of my first ones when I first started. So terrified. I can't tell you how many times when I would, face-to-face business, talk about, I used to be I'd go to people's homes, sell life insurance, right? That's what I used to do to start. I remember times I wouldn't even ring the bell. I would barely knock on the door, because then I can come back to the office and I can honestly say nobody answered. I was like, I was honest, right? So I would do that all the time. But I remember this one appointment I had. I went into this home. I was terrified out of my mind. I think this was maybe my 4th or 5th appointment. I was so scared. And I walked in the house, and if you saw my desk right now, you'd see this big mess. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying I have the tidiest house all the time, but this house was beyond not tidy. So much so that when I walked in, my shoes stuck to the floor. It was like this stick. Okay, whatever. And then I sat down, pulled out my paper presentation, started talking a little bit, then went to flip it over. Alan, the thing stuck to the table. I ripped the off the table and made the paragraph be like, nothing's wrong. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I scraped as much as I could scrape of it off. Still,
that's amazing.
Day I was like, oh my God, I don't know what happened in the house. But yeah, that was funny. I didn't really know how to do that, and I've never had to deal with that sticky of a house again. But yeah, that was interesting.
Well, it's always fun to talk to a fellow in-home salesperson, because that's where I cut my teeth, and that's where I spend a lot of my sales career is visiting people in their homes, and that is talk about a different type of salesperson that you need to be to do that. You've got B2B sales, you got retail sales, and then you got in-home sales where you're on someone's turf. And man, you see some stuff that.
Why am I?
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, I have. There's so many stories. One that comes to mind was, I was in the woods in the middle of Rhode Island once, like deliverance. Like I didn't even know where I was. Pouring rain. Get out of my truck. I go on the porch. I'm knocking on the door, and literally this gigantic man in a, what do you call it? Like a t-shirt, or whatever that's called, like one of those really ripped t-shirts. He's got all muscles. He's like, who are you? And I said, I'm here. We have a window appointment. And he starts screaming at his wife, apparently. And I don't hear her. And he starts screaming at me to get off his porch. And I said, okay. And then he goes inside. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I was kind of standing. Then he walks back to the door and he has a pipe in his hand.
Oh, God.
Like, get the F off my porch. So I start to run and he's chasing me to my truck with a pipe in his hand. And I get in my truck and I take off and I'm driving away thinking, what am I doing?
Don't you think in those moments, like there could be so much else I could be doing with my life?
Oh my God. It just.
Nights or weekends too, right? It's never at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So
no, you're there nights, you're there weekends. Oh, there's so many great stories. So for the in-home sales reps that are in the audience, we feel your pain. You guys have a special job, and yes, keep it up because it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Yeah.
You can do it.
So I want to get to the question of the week because I think we can actually talk a little bit about this even after we answer the question, because I think it's such an important, you go through your sales presentation and you have the objection handling and all this other stuff that's out there, but there's ways to do things that are natural and there's ways to make people feel comfortable. And I think this question, it's a really good question and we can get into a part of that. So Laura from Amarillo, Texas. How far is Amarillo from Dallas, by the way?
About 4 hours.
Oh, Texas.
Yeah.
Pretty big state. You could drive from one end of Rhode Island to the other in 35 minutes.
Yeah. I can't even do that from one end of Dallas to the other. Yeah. So.
Rhode Islanders like, I got to drive to Providence. That's 10 minutes. And they complain all the time. So.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. So here's Laura's question. She writes, I'm always getting price pushback when I do a presentation in front of a prospect. Are there any tips to help my prospects not be so shocked at the end? I think that's an amazing question. How would you answer that?
So very first thought that came to mind when I heard that is that it seems to always happen to her. And I think in sales, sometimes there's trends and then there's instances. So if it's always happening, I challenge you to look at your presentation because you're presenting a product. And if every single time somebody is surprised, that means you're not presenting the value at a strong enough point in the beginning. Does that make sense? So I would actually not worry so much about the price. Her mind might be like, oh, our price is too high. We need to compete better on price. I don't think so. Think about how many of us own $1,000 phones when we could easily own, the $100 phones. How many of us drive $60,000 cars when we could easily drive a $20,000 car? Price is definitely an issue in the absence of value, but if it's happening all the time, then she is not promoting enough value throughout her presentation. And I think it comes from the fact that she may not be digging enough into what their pain points are. There's not enough pain for them to want to pay the price for that product. If there was, then they'd be doing it no problem. So if she's getting that all the time, I would start right at the beginning of the presentation and see what we can do to the discovery phase to see where we can hit those pain points a lot harder.
And I agree with that 100%. And I would add to that, I think a lot of reps forget pricing is so psychological. And there's quite a few things that you can do to prepare a customer for price. One is obviously build the value, but also you need to price condition to the value. So let's say your product is $10,000. Most people, for most products, studies have been done, think whatever they're going to buy is about half the price of what it is. It's a pretty common thing when you're buying windows, roofs, whatever it is, health insurance. They usually think it's about half. But you have to have them say that. You say, what are you thinking? Any idea what you think this is going to cost? And
I love that.
$5,000. You say, okay. You then what they value this particular insurance policy at $5,000, but yours is $10,000. So how are you going to get that value to the $10,000 mark? That's the way you start the price condition. You say, well, just so you know, most companies are right around 7,500. 5,000. You haven't shopped for insurance in a while. You're not that's not really where it is. And they would be, yeah, you're right. I haven't shopped in a while. But now it's up to 7,500. And then you start building your own value to kind of capture that 2,500 gap in there. So price condition, get other numbers in their head. Don't just present and then throw a price on the table.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be sticker shock no matter what.
No matter what. I love that advice, Alan, especially because if you're doing it early on in the presentation, like you said, it's not going to be a surprise towards the end. We're going to gradually start building them towards that. So yeah, I think the whole pricing conversation has to start a lot sooner than most reps do.
Oh, 100%. And the reps that are afraid of their price, you said it at the beginning, the number one thing before you do anything is you need to believe in your price. You need to believe that what you're selling is worth that price. If you don't believe that, then you just need to sell something else, because if you don't believe it, the customer is certainly not going to believe it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not.
Yes. Start with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would say, Laura, let's find out if you believe in what you're selling. Number one, you really like what you're selling. Do what Eneida said. Start building the value. Find out what they think the price is. And then here's a one final small tip. Price conditioning can also be used in what I call anchoring. You can anchor a number in someone's head. And when I sold windows, I did this a lot. I would walk in, and within the first 5 or 10 minutes, I would say, so tell me, do you think a window is more than $3,000 or less than $3,000? And 100% of the time they would be like, well, I hope it's less than $3,000. And I'm like, yeah, I think you're right, but we'll get to that. But now 3,000 is in their head.
Yeah.
It's anchored. And 45 minutes later, when you get to the price and it's 2,100 or whatever it was, they actually think, oh, that's not a bad price. They don't know why they think it's not a bad price, but you built the value, and there's this little anchor sitting back there of 3,000 that they don't even know is sitting there. So
that's a good NLP technique, Alan. I'd be nervous to hang around you. Very good.
So, that was a good question by Laura. So Laura, we'd love to hear from you again. Just write in. Anyone that wants to write in and say hello to me on the website, please do so. So anything else you want to add? We're already at 38 minutes, believe it or not. And we can talk for a while. Just like, what would you leave us with some, Eneida nugget, like some sales nugget that you would say, I tell all my reps this. What would you say with that?
I would say number one is pay attention to cues people are giving you. We're so worried about presenting, asking the questions, sounding professional, having the product knowledge. Most people are giving you their vibes right off the bat, and you're ignoring
so right.
So I just think emotional intelligence is, for me, paramount over product knowledge. First of all, like, can you even feel what I'm trying to say to you? And I'm talking beyond are my arms crossed? Am I smiling? Am I relaxed? Are you talking over me? Are you laughing at the jokes I'm trying to lay down? Do you, pay attention to cues I'm leaving out for you? I think emotional intelligence would be such a number one place to start. Jeb Blunt has a great book on emotional intelligence. I would pick stuff up like that so you can start to recognize it. You said it, number one trait is empathy, right? Being able to connect to the actual human. If you know how to do that and have poor actual skill set, I still bet you would outperform those who have great skill set and don't know how to connect. So I would start with intelligence.
There was that great movie that William H. Macy was in about that famous door-to-door salesman. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
I think it's called Door-to-Door.
Yeah.
And it was about a sales guy. He was a door-to-door sales guy who had terrible sales skills. He was not good at selling, but he was good at connecting with people.
Yes.
He just was really good at talking to people, and they just wanted to buy from him. And it's a really great sales movie. There's so many great ones, Tin Men and, Glengarry, all those great movies. But this one is so good because he was this older guy where he did it for years. He just walked around, literally door to door, carrying, like, he would sell brushes and cleaning supplies door to door, and made a career out of it. And people invited him in and had him for coffee because they loved how he made them feel. That's the biggest thing.
And you can be an introvert, extrovert, a jokester, a serious person. It doesn't matter. Your personality doesn't matter as long as you actually care about being that value to that person. I think that's really where it all starts. That empathy, the understanding, like, I really am here to serve you, not just to make a sale. And that's hard. It's not easy when, we come into sales wanting to make a lot of money, wanting to run our own show, wanting to be the guy. It's hard to say, okay, let me step back and say, why am I doing this, for this person? And I do want to say, if you're in a company right now where you're promoting a product you don't necessarily love or believe it, I would still give it everything you got, because that client could still be helped by that product, whether you love it or not. So while you're doing, don't be leaving the client. Don't let the client fall short just because you're a little bit checked out. Does that make sense? So if you have appointments with clients, still give it everything you got to them while you're looking, because it's not their fault that you're checking out. So, really empathize and care about the people that you're serving.
Wow, that's a great point. That is a great point. And I'm going to ask you this final question, because this is what I run into a lot. And it's salespeople asking me, and this is because they're following the pitch that they've been trained. I feel like a salesperson when I'm in front of someone. And I would answer that by saying, that's because you're following a pitch that's not catered to you. You're not turning it into, you're not using your own personality. Would you agree with that? Because the worst feeling to have is you feeling like a salesperson, because imagine how the prospect feels.
Yeah.
If you feel like a salesperson, you would definitely want in front of them. So.
Yeah. So I have a weird view on that too, because I think it's messed up that society has put salesperson into a bad word. You know what I mean? I
know. Yep.
That's terrible, because I'm proud to be a salesperson. I'm happy that I'm a salesperson. However, I view my role as an advisor, as a consultant, as the only person who can help make this transaction happen. So I think, you're again, see where I believe it's a lot of it is my mindset. Me being, I feel like a sales. What you're saying is you feel like you're pushing something on somebody that they don't need. But if you're the advisor, you're the consultant, you're there to try to figure out if this is the best situation for them. So it's your mindset that needs to switch, right? And how you're viewing what you're doing for the client.
Oh yeah. If you switch your mindset from selling to helping, then the feeling like a salesperson goes away. But if you're in there, if your only goal is to walk in and make that sale, that's your only goal, then you're going to feel like a salesperson. The customer's going to feel like you're a salesperson, and you're going to close at 20%.
And that's why we get because and that's why what you broke like up there. Who just want to go in. Oh, I said that's why we get a bad name as salespeople, because there's people like you who just want to go in there and just make a buck instead of actually help the people, right?
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
Find something to believe in, promote it to death, for sure.
Awesome. Well, on that note, this was great, Eneida. This was awesome. I'm really glad you joined me. It went by way too fast. Most of these podcasts do. But how can the last thing is, how can people find you if they want to? I'm sure people can reach out to you, say hello on LinkedIn. I know you have your own personal brand there. So how can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. DMs are always open. I'm actually happy to respond with a video message as well. So please DM me on LinkedIn, and let's see how we can connect, for sure.
Just so you know, her name is spelled Eneida. So it's pronounced Eneida, but it's Eneida. And last name is Canev, as in Victor. So Eneida Canev. Right. So if you type in Ene, she comes up pretty quickly. So.
Ellen,
and you're on Instagram at Her Sales Resource, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely a place you can reach. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Eneida, this has been great. Thank you for joining me again. We will stay in touch on LinkedIn and say hello every now and then. And I really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight.
Hey, I appreciate it so much. I had a lot of fun. Thanks, Alan.
All right. So everyone, this has been episode number 30 of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, the website is marketingandsalespodcast.com. Send me a question like Laura did tonight. She is getting a free copy of my book. You can too if I read your question on the air. So once again, thanks for joining, and we'll see everyone again next time.